How did you screw with computers at school? Took the Windows startup sound, edited in 8 minutes of dead air, edited in 15 seconds of SX noises, made that the new startup sound. Oh yes, back in grade 6 this kid decided to write XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX it. Q24 11 years old laughing as his computer yells out SXSXSXSX. Used an altered version of a JavaScript web browser hack that turns all pictures shown into pictures of French toast. I need this. If you still have it, please give me. Rotated monitors 90 degrees in graphics card settings. I did this a lot at primary school till my teachers sat me down for hacking the system and I was almost suspended. My school district used Macs pretty much everywhere. A couple of the most common pranks. There was a key combination that would invert all the colors on the screen. It was all the meter keys and 8. It was a lot of fun to do this to someone who left their computer unattended and didn't know that. One of the function keys, I think F11, would move all the windows to the outside edge of the screen, showing the desktop. Pushing it again moved them back, but there was an animation associated with both of the movements. If you held shift while tapping F11, it would do the same thing, but with the animation slowed down. The thing is, it didn't matter if the animation had completed or not. The machine would queue up another action for each time you hit F11, but wouldn't cancel the animation in progress. So if you were quick enough and someone wasn't paying attention, talking to their neighbor, looking a book, etc., you could lean over, spam shift plus F11 a few dozen times and effectively force them to watch all their windows slide in and out at a snail's pace for a minute or two. Not me, but I remember at my old school someone managed to disable the H key on lots of the computers. If you were typing and tried to press H, you would get an error message saying like, sorry, but the H key on this computer is currently disabled. Please try again later. Control and Alt and direction arrow to flip the screen's different directions. I stopped when I was told that could permanently mess up the computers. I started again in college. I did that in grade school. They had to pay a computer technician to come in. He said that there was a virus, it wasn't fixable, and left. I flipped it back the next day. Unplug mouse from back of computers 1 and 2. Switch the plugs, but leave the mice where they were. Mouse in front of computer 1 is now plugged into computer 2 and vice versa. Watch the hilarity ensue. I straight up got detention for that once. Some BS. We would take a screenshot of the desktop as it is, then delete all the icons off the desktop, and then make the screenshot we took the wallpaper, watch people futilely click on the wallpaper, and enjoy. I did this too but left a couple of functioning icons on the desktop so if they click on that, it worked fine, but if they click in the others it strangely isn't working. Much head scratching ensues. Fun times. Our school network ran on Windows for Workgroups 3.0. Machines were locked down so you couldn't run your own programs on them. However, we discovered if you put a modified WinINI file that allowed you to install your own programs in a network drive that came before where the lockdown version was stored, it would use that and you could install stuff. And that was my first introduction to Doom multiplayer. We did something similar, except we discovered, back on Windows XP, that we could rename any executable to Paint and it would run. We played Unreal Tournament and other LAN-friendly games in computer class instead of working. Somebody threw a Molotov cocktail into the window of a computer lab at my school. It was over a weekend, thankfully, so nobody was there, but it destroyed all of the computers in the room. My friend and I got blamed for it because the teacher whose lab it was thought we didn't like her, which we didn't. Thankfully our alibi was that we were on a plane flying back from a school exchange trip to Belgium when the damage occurred. There were several teachers on the flight to corroborate our story. That, and, you know, plane tickets. Back when the mice had balls, we'd remove the balls and leave the rest of the mouse. Side note, does this count as neutering computer mice? Soundboards. Holy crap, we were little demons in middle school with those things. My personal favorites were either Arnold Schwarzenegger or Pulp Fiction. When the teacher would ask if there are any questions, from the back of the class you would hear in a thunderous voice, WHO is your daddy and what does he do, followed by an eruption of laughter. Also following up anytime the teacher said, that's correct with, correct the mundo. If you're reading this Ms. Jadish, I'm so sorry. Our IT was crap at our school. If you knew the specific computer number you could make it shut down only using the Windows command eggs. The staff stopped setting the fun in it when we found the principal's computer number. Pretty close. My middle school, Windows XP, had a startup folder from a network share, except they forgot to remove write permissions for students on the drive. It was a teacher share. We added a startup script to open and close the drive. A couple days later every computer in the library was marked as out of order. This probably shows my age, but we'd open BASIC and write a little program that went something like this. 10 LPRINT you suck. Double quote. 20 go to 10. Then we'd edit the shortcut to a popular program, same as Word, to link to this program instead. When an unsuspecting user clicked to open what they thought was a legit program, instead they'd be treated to the dot matrix printer screeching out you suck, you suck, you suck forever. Only way to stop it was to find and terminate the program. Powering down the printer and turning it back on again wouldn't do it. My high school had a program on all the computers that would allow the teachers to watch an entire classroom's screens, take control of them, send content to them, etc. A friend of mine came up an idea to try to use it to prank the classroom, being the Verismit 16-year-olds we were. So, when my teacher wasn't looking, I put the USB stick into her computer and copied her spy program eggs directory onto it to take a look at what was different between the teacher and student versions. Turns out all you needed to make the student version a teacher version was a 25-character license key that was in a plain text file. So, obviously, I copied it and upgraded my client to a controller using all of my teacher's settings. We then proceeded to rickroll the classroom on full volume from 34 computers. It was pretty great. At the end of the class we came up with a great idea. What would happen if we took control of our teacher's computer and messed with her? So, we connected to her computer, but she had been watching our screen from her screen. So, for about 5 seconds we see a bottomless pit of our screen and her screen mirrors over and over and over. After about 5 seconds, our PC fans got super loud and then shut off. When we tried to turn it back on, it was a black screen with only a flashing underscore in the top left corner. That PC had to be re-imaged by district tech support. Still not sure what caused that. It rickrolled too hard. That's what happened. Me and a friend replaced our CS teacher's my computer icon with a shutdown shortcut, displaying a muahaha message for 3 seconds turning on the computer. She clicked it 3 times. Wasn't really the sharpest arrow in the quiver. In 1998 this idiot brought like 5p pictures on a floppy disk and decided to open them in computer class. Suspended on the spot. I have no idea what the frick he expected to happen. Guess he was thinking with his hard drive, not his floppy disk, if you know what I am saying. Moved all of the abacus beads to one side. I'm older than most Redditors. When I went to school, electricity wasn't invented yet. We used candles to watch TV. Nicolas Cage Chrome extension. Nkij. A classic, though my personal favorite isn't John Cena. In 201, I think, friends and I installed StarCraft deep in my high school's file network, accessible on every computer in the building, and we had it programmed to run without a disk. You would still need a CD key to play, but hacked false CD keys were easy back in the day. We passed out false CD keys to those who knew to ask us, and since it was all on the shared network, you could land from basically anywhere in the building. This was right around the time when computers were becoming really prevalent in schools, not just with computer labs, but many classes now had multiple computers, or were specifically just on computers. So, we'd end up organizing these pretty large StarCraft battles across the school. Even got to the point where, in drafting class, where the teacher absolutely didn't care what we were doing, my 2 friends and I, huge nerds, if that wasn't obvious, would play some of the jocks in the class who loved StarCraft. We didn't just break into the system to have fun, we also broke down barriers to make life better. My school had one of those annoying monitoring programs so the librarian could quickly see what you were doing and take control. And usually the butt would just turn the computer off. Someone found out then when she started watching, a small square appeared in the top left corner of the screen. If you right clicked this square you could reverse the control and take her computer over. Someone took over and rather quickly hit delete on the Windows folder. It didn't work, but it helped stop the overbearing watchful eye of the crappy librarian. Just imagine her facial expressions when she noticed her computer being possessed. I would always take the little ball out of the bottoms of the mice. Guaranteed an afternoon of entertainment every time. Now you have to put tape over the laser. Windows NT allowed you to specify the network name and we were allowed to change it on the login prompt. I replaced an E with a special character on the best computer in the lab, effectively making it my computer. IT had no clue. We pretty much ran the network. It was up or down at our whim. The entire network used hubs, and this was right as routers were becoming a thing, so they were not yet economical. We would shut down the entire network with a repeating ping command in DOS set to max packet size. It was far too simple. We wouldn't usually do it for long, just enough for everyone to think it was a hiccup, and to see if we could. Our computer class was actually really awesome. The assigned modules were easy, and once we were finished our teacher would let us do our own thing. Turns out, our school had an entire computer graveyard. We would go in there, find parts, and build entire computers. Eventually we had a separate network of 8 or 10 machines that we used exclusively for Quake 2 and the original Halo. One day the school came in and removed our separate gaming computers. We were peed. The network was down for quite a while. I changed the screensaver from liberal arts to liberal farts. I never did anything to damage computers, just circumvent security measures, using standalone browsers or games from a flash drive, using said browsers and or proxies to get around web filters, installing programs games in the C root directory since most group policy or other security measures wouldn't stop something from executing from there, etc. I used Tor in college since it's portable lol. So computer class for most of grade school was nothing more than endless typing classes. She sells seashells by the seashore and other tongue twisters to get us practicing home rows and typing quickly. Absolutely mind-numbingly dull. Sure, getting to play Commander Keen or Wolfenstein after was nice, but the reward was nowhere near worth the effort to reach it, and the teacher would constantly get frustrated with me ditching homerows and finishing faster and accurately without them. So one day, with us both being frustrated with each other, I restarted the computer and opened the BIOS setup utility and started changing random settings to random values. Child me was vindictive. Oh god, those typing tutorial programs were heck. I was in college, in a classroom, waiting my turn to an exam, which was held in another room. Bored out of my mind, behind me was a PC. I saw a red button that said 220. I say out loud, what does this button do, and turn the button. The button now says 150 and a loud bang and smoke comes from inside the PC unit. I turned the power supply unit from 220V to 150V, which toasted it. The room was full with my colleagues. Everybody looks at me in disbelief. I begin to laugh out loud, not believing what just happened. Luckily, nobody told on me to the professor, who was a difficult guy. We figured out we could make the computer sound like chainsaws by putting a handful of quarters into the CD drive. Then we did it a lot. That just sounds like vandalism. To the dumbass student who tried to mess with the school computer by shoving paper into the CD tray, don't use paper with your class schedule, full name, and id number on it, dumbass. What if they used some random student's schedule lying around, and now that innocent student will be blamed because one of the administrators moonlights as a detective? Not school, but many years ago when I was a hapless little crap, I was walking by a couple of computers in one of those we sell anything cheap stores. There was one on an end cap, it was running 95 or 3.1, can't remember. So I logged out, opened DOS and said format C, and walked away. I'm sure I've paid for it over the years in karma. One day in junior high we stole all of the mouse balls from all the mice in the computer lab. This was before the laser ones. Literally every single one. The school's solution after this was to super glue the covers on, so you physically can't remove them. This was a problem though, because with those type of mice you do have to clean the little ball sockets from time to time, but with the covers super glued on, that was no longer possible. So eventually all the mice became really crappy and almost unusable. Computers were all on the same network. Big school, 2,800 students, approx 150 computers on it including faculty computers. We learned the ability to use nets and lab 208 or whatever computer a friend was on, and we could send messages, basically texting. This evolved to we could cheat on certain tests for some of our classes. Never got caught. When I wasn't doing work, I was playing Final Fantasy V on a SNES emulator. It was my small payback for removing the seniors can leave early if they have number 7th period class option. A couple Chinese kids at my school changed the default language on each computer to Chinese. Ours was a two-man operation. At my high school, you couldn't really do anything serious software-wise without it being found and fixed within a period or two. A friend of mine was clever with coding. I was friendly with the IT guy. Friend wrote a VB script that ran at startup which would pick a random keyboard key, and when it was pressed a certain number of times it would trigger a shutdown with a 15-second timer. Whenever it happened, the IT guy would simply re-image the hard drive. However, after having me do a bit of recon, we discovered that unlike most other IT guys, instead of having the image on a CD, he would pull the hard drive, take it to his workshop, and do a disk-to-disk clone from a master computer using a ghost boot disk. After slightly modifying his script to make it open the CD tray after a random key was pressed a random number of times, we thought the shutdown might be pushing it. He tasked me with getting it onto the master PC. I found my opening during a lunchtime where IT guy asked me to help out. When he nipped off to the bathroom, I quickly pulled out my friend's floppy disk with the script and loaded it on the master PC. For about 3 months PCs all over the school were randomly opening their CD trays. It wasn't until my friend and I came clean to IT guy that it was found. Because we were bros with IT guy by this time, he laughed about it and told the higher ups it was some kind of software conflict that he'd managed to find and fix. How my friend managed to do something similar using VB script, but since the computers were all independent he had to manually run it on the computers, so only 4 or 5 disk drives would randomly open. Funny thing is, after a week or two people just stopped caring and accepted that the drives were haunted. I think it was in 2004, my IT teacher let me use an old laptop for a project. Inside it was a floppy disk with the username and password for all users on the learning platform we used, including teachers. The rest of the semester I logged into the teachers' accounts, found the hand-ins from the best students, downloaded, made it my own and handed it in from my own account. Never got busted, but I realized I used almost the same time altering assignments as I would have if I just made my own. Also had some fun with the Letmural Trojan from time to time. At my old school, students had access to command prompt. It made for a lot of fun times. I think my favorite was when someone made a fake Google Chrome shortcut that would open infinite windows until the computer crashed, and then replaced real Chrome with it on multiple computers. Put a space in the password text box so when you try to log in there is an incorrect space and the password returns wrong. For maximum effect, press the left arrow key so that the position indicator goes back to normal. You have to know to backspace in order to fix it. Changing the startup sound was locked down, but I was able to overwrite the sound file itself with the South Park opening song. To be fair, the South Park theme is pretty catchy. Whoever hears it while starting up would have it stuck in their head for the rest of the day. We had WinXP at school and could only use the guest user to do work and stuff. BIOS was password protected, but it had a floppy CCAT boot, so I made a bootable floppy, copied command line winrar on it, stole SAM file from system folder. Later on at home brute forced the password for 8 hours. On the next day everyone could log in as an admin and install all kinds of crap. This went on for about a month until someone found out. IT techs and teachers were freaking peed. No one ratted me out though. I was kind of a hero lol. Back in my day, most of the computers at school ran Windows 98 and the labs were networked. I did lots of mundane stuff on desks where the monitors were back to back. A typical go-to was swapping cables. A VGA cable here, a mouse there, speakers, whatever, removing or taping over the mouse ball. When people didn't know about DOS, rebooting to DOS mode, editing shortcuts and icons so that a shortcut would look like it was forward, but would instead go to recorder, character mapper or some such. Once I changed the sound scheme on a teacher's computer so that every single action played the ding sound. Trying to access anything resulted in a long stream of ding, ding, ding ding, ding ding ding. Also, edited the default Windows startup sound file to one that was 5 minutes long. Abusing the Windows Messenger service was great. At random I would freak people out with pop-ups referencing them by name. I'm sorry Michelle, but I can't do that. Or scary messages like computer system overheat detected, please shut down immediately, etc. Also, changing the sound scheme to play sounds when a message was received and then blasting the workgroup with messages. Imagine the cacophony of dings circulating all of the computers in the room. One that got me in trouble was playing with startup files, setting computers to run ScanDisk at boot, running pointless and time-consuming commands in AutoExec.bat. I combined all the computer pranks I've heard at the time, flipped the view upside down, took a screenshot, flipped it back, set the screenshot as the desktop background, created a fake shortcut of Firefox to be a forkbom. Basically a .bat file that shuts down the computer when launched. Not sure how safe, turned off desktop icons. Flipped the view upside down again so everything looked normal, but the mouse pointer seemed upside down and would move opposite, and to top it off I put a piece of a post-it note on the mouse so it wouldn't work. A bit of an overkill, but seemed hilarious at the time. Got in trouble with my IT teacher. I conned the Bo to purchase deep freeze. Then I scheduled a reboot at 4 AM so the computers were refreshed every day. Then laughed when teachers insisted on keeping things on their desktop after being told not to. My friend and I entered into the operating system itself a virus that would essentially hunt through email accounts with .edu address, so all teachers and administration, and display a picture of 2 women hooking up. If the operator clicked equals 10 times, a video started. If the operator clicked 20 times, the noise started. The only way to get rid of it was pretty simple. CTR Alt-Det and use taskbar to shut it down. Not that complex obviously. Although to be honest I didn't do a lot of programming. I did some of the basics. However, I mostly did the strategic planning of how we were actually going to get it done and implement it. My friend's dad was a programmer and hobbyist hacker, so he actually helped my friend design it. I still find it hilarious that his dad was willing to frick with the teachers. He must have really hated our school, lol. However, most teachers didn't know that. They didn't know who did it, but it was hilarious. Make my friend's backgrounds suffolk or gapy. You have been visited by the fashion doggo. Comment your envy strengthens me so you always look beautiful. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.